I'm Riley, I love movies, so let's talk Charlie's Angels. And as someone who is a fan of the first two movies, I enjoyed them a lot. You know, they didn't take themselves too seriously, girls were kicking butt, it was a good time, like things were exploding, all that good stuff. This one took a turn because when I saw the trailer, I was like meh about it, right? I wasn't too like, woo! I was kind of like, nah, you know, and then I saw Kristen Stewart is in it, and a lot of people got really excited, but I'm not a fan of hers. To me, she doesn't act, she's just literally herself in like every movie she does, right? And not only that, in this movie, she's supposed to be the funny one, Sabina, and then you have Ella Balinska, who I've never seen in anything else, is the muscle in this one, and then you have Naomi Scott. And she was the actual one where I was excited to see because she most recently played Jasmine in the newest Aladdin. And then you have Elizabeth Banks, directing, writing, and acting. And once you see this movie, you realize she probably stretched herself a little too thin because even her acting wasn't up to her usual standard. She was probably, it was a little all over the place, but maybe that was the character. But at the same time, these female characters weren't, with the amount of talk she was doing in all these interviews about having a really great like feminist movie and girl power and all this kind of stuff, her female characters to me weren't rounded out. You know, you had the funny one, and that's all she kind of was, with a little bit of depth, but not really. You had the muscle, who was very stoic and couldn't cry, and then you had this scientist girl who created this and can all of a sudden kick butt out of nowhere, and you're just kind of going, these are very like almost one-dimensional characters that for the amount of talk that was going around and Elizabeth Banks like hyping it up like I did so well, like she was basically praising herself, and the characters she created weren't the best. Like for a movie that's supposed to be all about girl power and women, the men actors actually stole the show for me, which is ironic to like 1000%, right? You had Patrick Stewart, Jonathan Tucker, I'm gonna butcher his name, I'm so sorry, Jaman Hansu, very great actor, he's been in a lot of stuff. And then you have Noah Centron, Sam Claflin, like there was so many good male actors in here that were actually, like they came to work, you know? The females, for some reason, I don't know if it was the script or what, but they weren't, their acting just didn't seem to be as on par as the males, which I find very interesting in the fact that this is supposed to be a movie like centered around females, and Elizabeth Banks even said for females. Like she very clearly was like, this movie's for women, which is another whole thing that I won't get into. But the fact that this whole movie, I'm getting drawn to like the male characters, something didn't go right in here, right? And I think it's like I said, the female characters felt very one-dimensional, and then you have these male actors just coming in who are truly acting compared to like a Kristen Stewart, right? So you're going to be drawn towards them. First of all, Patrick Stewart's a legend, right? And then, spoiler alert, he turns out to be the bad guy. So then you're like, oh, this is awesome. Like he's totally taking charge, and he's got that like funniness to him and that cool factor where you just love him with anything he's in, right? And then you had Jonathan Tucker, who I've seen in a couple TV shows. You'll recognize him when you see him, but in Charlie's Angels, he's the badass tattooed dude who's like the right-hand man to Patrick Stewart's Bosley, and he takes care of everything for him, you know? But his character didn't say a whole word like till the end. Like it reminded me of the first, you know, Charlie's Angels, where they had the slim man, or the thin man, sorry, with Crispin Clover. Yeah, I think that's it, where he didn't talk the whole movie. And this was like a reference back to that one, but he was different in that he was a badass tattoos, just kicking butt. And like he stole the show without even talking. Like what? Right? Like that just shows you like how almost bad the females were in this movie. If a dude who's not even talking and just kicking butt and being, you know, the guy, that you just kept getting drawn to him, right? You're just waiting for him to come on screen and just kill it, right? Literally too, he kills a bunch of people in this movie. And then he eventually, spoiler alert, dies, you know, but he's a bad guy, bad guys die. That's how it goes. And then you had Sam Claflin. He was in the Hunger Games. He made a funny appearance. Like he was supposed to be, I guess, maybe on par with Kristen Stewart's funny. Like she was here and he was here, right? Like he was just light years ahead. Like he was just funnier. Like he was the rich guy who owned the company that Elena, the scientist, angel in training, worked at, right? and he's just a rich dude who just doesn't really know a whole lot that's going on around him, and he just has Patrick Stewart's Bosley now working for him because he was retired from the Charlie's Angels as his head of security, and he's like, dude, I don't want to know. Like, if you have to kill people, like, I don't want to know. I want to have plausible liability, right? And he's talking about all this stuff, and he's like, I don't want to know. Like, I just want my stuff done. I want my things back. Like, he's just a rich guy who doesn't really understand what's happening. And he was just funny because, like, once he realized what starts happening, he faints. He's just like, he's at a party and he's just like, everyone just go home. Like, his acting was great. He was a smaller character, but he felt bigger in the fact that every time he was on screen, I was drawn to him, right? He was funny. And then you had, like I said, I'm gonna say it wrong again, the Jomon Hansu guy was a Charlie's Angels instructor in the beginning. He was helping train the angels, and then he gets killed by Hodak, which is Jonathan Tucker, you know, Bosley's right-hand bad guy man with the tattoos. He kills him. It's just like every time these guys were on screen, there was just something about them, like their presence. Maybe the script was written better for them, which I don't understand with the amount that it was supposed to be about the women. But in the long run, they stole the show for me. And then I didn't have a whole lot of expectations going into this movie, but when they can't even meet your like low expectations, you know it's not going to be a good movie. Like, I was excited in the beginning because they had taken this whole Charlie's Angels concept and how they were just in the United States or just in LA and expanded it. They talk about how Patrick Stewart's Bosley made it international and he grew it, and when he's being retired, because you find out they kind of force retired him, in this round circle room, and all these people from different agencies are popping up at his retirement party and they're all saying goodbye, but it says like Paris, Germany, and it's everywhere. They have angels everywhere, which is a cool concept because now when they need to travel to these other places, they have safe houses, they have places where they can get gear, they have places where they can train, so they're training angels all over the world. So it's not just the three. So if like this movie didn't do too well, they could focus on different angels, right? But these were the main ones. But then it got confusing because every time they'd land somewhere, or someone, like, you'd see her and she'd walk by and pass off keys to Elizabeth Banks Bosley, right? And then you're just like, okay, but is this just a random person who's helping them, or is this supposed to be an angel? And then at the end, they're all there and they're all angels. And it's just like these little moments where you're just kind of going, well, but they never made it clear. And I guess they don't have to, but it just would have been nice, you know, to know some more of the angels' faces. Because they were only focusing on the main three. Sabina, which is Kristen Stewart's character, Elena, the scientist, and then Jane, the muscle one, right? Like, they were the focus. And for them to be the focus when they're not a powerhouse trio like the original three, I don't feel like invested in them. And then their characters themselves weren't written enough for me to actually want to get invested in them. Like, I don't know, it was a strange feeling of like, I wanted to like them, and there's at times where I did, but they just felt very, not even unlikable, just almost like they would fade into the background. They were very, like I said, one's a scientist, one's muscle, one's funny. Like, that was like all they had to them. And as a script that's supposed to be written to very flesh out women, it wasn't portrayed right. I don't even know. Like, I don't even know where this movie, how to talk about it, because it was just not the best, you know? And the fact that they're trying to get, like, Kristen Stewart to carry this movie, like, I'm sure her fans are all the ones that came out to see it, but there's just as many people out there who don't like her. And it's just one of those things where they needed other stars. They needed, like, bankable stars in this movie. But as I said, Patrick Stewart, like, stole the show. Jonathan Tucker was a nice surprise for me. And in the long run, like, the twist of him, because it wasn't that big of a twist, because they tried to set up Elizabeth Banks Bosley as the bad guy, but I just knew she wasn't going to be the bad guy. First of all, it's too easy. And second of all, it's a movie about women, supposedly for women, as she said. So they're not going to make a woman the bad guy. They hint around that Charlie is a woman, you know? So they're making it, I said, all about women, which is fine. Like, I feel like there is a way to do that that would actually interest women and interest everybody. This was a movie that just fell flat to me. I don't know, like even the whole storyline I can sum up for you where it's like she's a scientist, she created this thing that makes things go boom, right? But it can also short circuit someone, or not short circuit someone, it kills them. It's like a little magnetic pulse and it just mimics a stroke and they die. So the bad guys want it because they can sell it globally. And then the head of her company is like, no, we're not gonna do it, we're just gonna say it's fine. So they have to steal it. Then it's like them chasing it all around these places. They go to Germany, they go to Brazil, Hamburg, you know, all these places to try to get it back. And then it of course ends up at a party, or Patrick Stewart like reveals himself to be the bad guy. And then there's this big, there wasn't, to me, even like it didn't even go back to the main Charlie's Angels. There wasn't a whole lot of explosions. There didn't seem to be a whole lot of fighting. There was a lot of setup in this movie, which also didn't make it fun. You know, like this is the kind of movie where you, like I said, with low expectations, you at least expect explosions and fun, and it didn't ever reach that point for me. So by the time you're at the end and you're expecting this like crazy fight scene, like Elizabeth Banks' character, the lights go out and then the lights come on and then all the bad guys are on the floor because they put these dots on them which like paralyze them, and all the angels that have been supposedly helping throughout the film are there. And then it's like, that's the whole like anticlimactic fight scene? Like seriously? So, I mean, the angels win and they train in the end. The scientist trainee one becomes, this shows the montage at the end of her training with all these angels, and they bring in famous like people for cameos that you'd recognize, and like that was kind of fun, but at the same time, it wasn't enough. This movie wasn't enough. Like in the long run, no one asked for it. They didn't perform it well. It's a no for me, you know? I don't know. Yeah, it's a no. Bye.